I have a heavy filter on with going to work, and which rightfully so. It's a professional environment, but with maybe one or two people exception wise, there's pretty much no topics I'll talk about. Or if I'll talk about it, I'll just give you a fake opinion. It's just not worth it. It's just not worth the risk. I often have to commute into the office. I live in the suburbs of a downtown area, so I commute via train, and it's about a 45, 50-minute commute on train, and then another 10-minute walk or so. And I don't mind it's that much going into the office occasionally, but what really bugs me is that there's just completely no need for it. My job doesn't require a lot of communication in person, but most importantly, the in-office culture is completely dead. The company doesn't put any effort into making the office place engaging or kind of interesting to be at. And I don't want to be a complete complaint fest. I'm grateful for my job, and I've learned a lot of opportunities. I've had a lot of opportunities through it, and learned from the people there. But I'm just being straight up honest and saying that I don't think it's completely necessary to be in the office. And if it is, then you can make an exception and go there for meetings, etc. But there's not that many meetings that you need to be in person, in my opinion. And so it's kind of got me thinking that once COVID kind of ebbed out and people started going back to the office part-time or full-time, how little the in-office culture, if it's not really focused on by the company, matters. I'm on these PR internal meetings where they're talking about, bolstering XYZ culture focus of the company. And I'm just thinking, like, who gives a shit? Like, I don't know anyone in my company or my direct, work group, and the teams that are around me. I don't think they really care. First of all, with the Me Too movement, that's pretty much killed all cross-sex communication. I know personally that once I was already, I should already preface this by saying I was already hyper aware of what I would say and how I would communicate to people, because in my first video I made, I was always aware of that. And I felt, I couldn't put a finger on the feeling exactly, but I could just feel that the history and the internet and how it works, you have to be really careful what you say now. Especially if you're in like public governance, or it turns out just any normal job, it seems now, that you can just be canceled. So going through college and seeing that the beginning stages of that made me hyper aware of that. And so now that, kind of the Me Too movement has come and gone, and the result is that people are now completely scared to have normal conversation and talk about anything other than work, unless you're super trustworthy of that person, of your coworker, etc. And there's probably about one or two people at my work that I currently kind of have that level of trust. But I've come to realize, like, if that basic communication is just broken down and people just don't trust each other and can't communicate without being somewhat understanding of some barriers of communication, or there's some leeway without calling HR and being canceled immediately, without that kind of natural human instinct to kind of give deference and understanding to that person, with the ease of cancelability now, it's just totally not worth it to foster any type of workplace communication or relationships. Certainly you can do it on a client basis, but that's talking about business. You're not actually making a friend at work anymore, at least that I feel like it. And so coming to that realization and understanding that work culture, when you go into the office, you kind of have the water cooler conversation, talk about a little bit of, your personal life, etc. I don't even know how to describe it because I've never done it. But that's dead. The point is that's dead. And I have to ask myself every time I go into the office, why am I going there? And with the exceptions of a couple meetings that are, it's easier to have in person, there's really no reason to do it. It's just increased expenses to go travel, and there's no upside. Completely no upside, in my opinion, other than a couple meetings every now and then. You could have like once a month. in my opinion. Obviously, it depends on the job, but for my work, where you don't have to interact interpersonally a lot, it's completely unnecessary. Managers are concerned, and rightfully so, because if you don't have that interpersonal connection at work for your people, why are they gonna stick around at work? They're not gonna work extra hours because you're not gonna be talking. You're not gonna be loyal to the company because you have no interpersonal connections there, which is partly why we see kind of just job hopping everywhere. Nothing wrong with that. It's just a matter of fact, right? And managers are rightly concerned, and this is why they're kind of pushing to come back in the office. But you realize that, now that the woke movement has kind of, or not woke, excuse me, now that the Me Too movement has taken over, and rightfully so, there's some absolute scumbags that were put behind bars, thankfully. But now there's kind of swung, like a pendulum, as always, has swung too far in the other direction. Now people just can't talk to each other. I certainly don't really, I have a heavy filter on with going to work, and which rightfully so, it's a professional environment, but with maybe one or two people exception-wise, there's pretty much no topics I'll talk about, or if I'll talk about it, I'll just give you a fake opinion. It's just not worth it. It's just not worth the risk. And so realizing this, that culmination of understanding that, one, interpersonal communication and kind of trust in the workplace is dead because there's been too many people where you just get canceled with, a misspoken word, or a genuine confusion or misinterpretation of some phrase or such. And I can put up examples if I really need to, but I'm sure the internet is fully capable of finding them on your own. With that being dead, just the interpersonal trust, and I'm worried about if you accidentally touch someone or graze them as you're walking in a corridor, you could get like a sexual harassment case against you. There's really no point in being in the office. And then two, it's just like, well, if my communication can all be online, why am I coming to the office anyway? So those two major factors are just huge reasons for me to realize, like, this is a complete waste of my time. I'm taking 2 hours of my day to commute to a place that no one talks to. There's multiple times, pretty much weekly, that I go into the office and I don't say a single word, or I might nod to someone, and that's my total interaction for that day. And it's not like I work an entire office building by myself. There's my whole team's there, but it's just not necessary for us to communicate. And also it's like too much of a risk, And so understanding that metric and how the game has changed with interpersonal work, it's just a complete waste of time in my opinion. And so consequently, when I think about commuting, it's just an unpleasant circumstance. It's just a waste of time, as I said, about 2 hours out of your day, just commuting, dead time, Thankfully, it's not driving. I at least can read or something on the train, right? But it's unpleasant, it's painful, and it's just like dysentery. It's just wasteful.